Julia Bue-Said, based in Hertfordshire, is the chief executive at the Advantage Travel Partnership, the UK's largest independent travel agent partnership. Julia, good afternoon.
Hello, hi, how are you?
I'm all right. I think you might be a bit jet lagged when you're in New York, but I'm thinking hopefully you can make more sense of this than we're getting from Westminster. What's happened now?
Oh, well, I think in typical government fashion, we've seen another yo-yo back to non-red list countries. So as you quite rightly said there, from 4 o'clock tomorrow morning, 11 countries will come off the red list after a few weeks of being put back on the red list. And if you remember, we had no red list for a couple of months before this last announcement. So it's chaotic, it's shambolic, it's confusing, and as your listener that you were talking about there said, it's exceptionally distressing for anybody that is looking to travel or has travelled from any one of these destinations.
Well, Francesca went on safari, and she had no problem with that. She knew when she left to go on the safari to South Africa, there might be a risk. And as it so happened, while she was in South Africa, that country was placed on the red list. So, okay, well, I've got to book and pay to stay in a government-approved quarantine hotel, but £2,285, Julia. And we've been following her because the food, I mean, she just couldn't eat the stuff she was being served. It was ridiculous. The whole thing wasn't value for money.
No, well, I don't think anybody staying at the Holiday Inn in Heathrow would accept that is any value whatsoever, let alone how you incarcerate people who have just done what is quite rightly a freedom to travel to wherever they want to travel to. The red list, and I think in one respect, when you think about it in theory, it sounds very logical. The way to suppress a variant of concern is to incarcerate people in a government facility. It may sound theoretically logical, but actually, when you look at the data of all the red list countries that we've had in red list categories over the summer, it really has not detected any variants of concern. And actually, the second that the government knew that Omicron was seeded, because it has been seeded across the UK for 10 days, 2 weeks now, those facilities should have been removed. They should never have been an option. And actually, why the government can't enable people to self-isolate at home if they are coming back from a country where they believe there is a variant of concern, why that is not possible, undergo the testing that is required, we really just don't understand. It seems highly illogical that we still are talking about a quarantine facility however many months later.
I know they've got a lot on their plate, the government, but if a family returned or arrived in the UK for Christmas to see relatives for the first time in 18 months, they arrived from a red list country, and they've gone into quarantine, they'll be free to leave at 4 a.m. tomorrow. Then there's the issue of, do they get their money back? Who pays for that? Well, obviously the government. And what if they've booked, which they would have had to do, booked a day 8 PCR test? Do they get that reimbursed? It's just, none of this seems to make any sense.
No, I think the big problem that we have as an industry also is generally the communication. So we don't get to hear the communication until it's been announced. So even now, we've got lots of our members trying to help consumers, trying to help their travellers, but actually you cannot find the information until a few hours later. You'll get the official documentation through. So there is a much more civilised way of doing this that will enable all of us to be able to help travellers, help the industry to help travellers by proper engaged communication. It's something, as you know, we've talked about for a long time now. It would help everyone. It would help the traveller. It would help the industry, and we're not getting that as it stands. So lots of questions unanswered, lots of queries coming through that we just simply don't have the answers to right now.
It is very curious. I mean, as you and I have discussed this throughout the pandemic, Julia, the problem is the industry, the travel industry, the airline industry doesn't work short term. Everything is planned long term. That's the way the industry works. It's got to, and it works globally. But this constant flipping and flopping can't help anybody.
No, and a lot of it is very logical. I mean, as you saw, I was in New York on a business trip last week. I went for a full-day business trip. I took, within that space of time, 3 tests. And actually, most of it seems very illogical that I have to take 3 PCR tests in the space of 4 days. And it's costly. It's extortionate. Why also, if we're asking travellers to travel, why are the government not making available free tests? Why are travellers being penalised? if I go to, if I was a school child, if I was going to school, if I was going to, other settings in the UK, if I come to work, we ask people to take lateral flows. Well, they're given for free. Why are travellers penalised? So it just seems very illogical why we have the government has a very different view in how they want travellers to test and pay for absolutely extortionate testing as opposed to any other setting at home.
We soldier on. Julia, thank you. As always, Merry Christmas to you. Julia Bue-Said, based in Hertfordshire, Chief Executive of the Advantage Travel Partnership.